Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Lee and Sheila clash for shocker as Hope responds to Brooke's medical emergency. As Lee Finnegan and Sheila Sharp collide for a shocking moment, watch how Logan responds to Brooke Logan's medical emergency. Eventually, a phone call will disrupt Hope and Liam Spencer's ongoing reunion at Bill Spencer's house. Hope will be in a panic as she answers the phone and gets information about Brooke's medical emergency in Naples. Thankfully, Brooke will reassure Hope that everything will be alright. According to BNB teasers, Hope will be concerned until she receives her mother's assurance because Brooke will be phoning from the hospital. Hope will undoubtedly learn about Brooke's impact and how Ridge Forrester saved her life. Hope might conclude that her mother and Ridge still have a future together based on Brooke's upbeat tone. As Hope shares her newfound knowledge with Liam, John Finnegan will not back down from Grace Buckingham. Grace hoped that they could keep her fraud between them, but Finn is not amenable to that. Rather, Liam will expect Grace to tell him the truth as soon as possible, and Finn will demand that she does. Grave will soon be brought to the Spencer estate by Finn, so she may start telling Liam about his phony brain disease and operation. Lee and Sheila will unexpectedly collide in the interim. Luna Nozawa might be involved since Sheila and Lee are about to have an unexpected encounter. Could Sheila become even more suspicious if Lee makes a Luna mistake? Would Sheila be willing to follow Lee and deal with the surprise of discovering her unconscious grandchild still alive? Taylor's choice is incomprehensible, and Brooke has one good alternative. Believing she could turn her true love's head, Brooke Logan traveled to Italy. Why, then, would Taylor Hayes let Ridge Forrester, the same man, go without her? Taylor expressed her trust in Ridge to Brooke's defense sisters, Donna Logan and Katie Logan. That's not the soapy point, though. As they got ready for yet another of this soap opera's lavish location shoots, which turned out to be amazing, viewers watched the setup from across the Atlantic. As anticipated, the Italian views have been pleasing, and the triangle formed by Ridge, Brooke, and Nick Marone is being questioned. Nick may be Brooke's fate since he wants to dedicate himself to her once more. Ridge has never given Brooke his whole attention and isn't with her at the moment, as Wagner's resurrected character stated. What makes him a good choice, then? Sidewalk supervisor Eric Forrester. Fans may recognize specific personality traits in images of Eric Forrester repeatedly reprimanding his adopted son over Ridge's paternal brother, Nick. These are the folks that congregate on the sidewalk to provide their insightful opinions about how a summer house project ought to be carried out without getting their hands dirty. Why didn't Eric pursue Nick directly? Fans are aware that Eric was able to pickleball his way out of Quinn Fuller's unhappy marriage and replace her with Donna. He was therefore more than capable of overseeing the most recent fashion spectacular from Forrester Creations while simultaneously making sure that some of FC's fashion workers detained or misled Nick. Since that didn't occur, catastrophe is on the horizon. Instead, though, Eric is complaining about Nick's advancement and advising Ridge on what he ought to be doing before, during, and following the event. Thanks to McCook, who is still very much alive in his position as the patriarch of the Forrester family on this fantastic show, Taylor Hayes is at her own fault. Ridge recently received a desperate marriage proposal from Taylor. Ridge agreed to the request because, as Eric correctly points out, he is willing himself away from Logan, which made her feel uneasy and afraid of Brooke's continuous influence. Only if Ridge persuades himself that the dramatic and evolving events in Italy are a call to transform his life will Budig's character be held accountable. If Ridge calls off their engagement, as now looks likely, Taylor will be distraught. Brooke Logan goes for a water dip. Nick's plans were combined with the amazing trip that Brooke and the Forresters had organized. He was determined to persuade her to abandon Ridge. Nick was not prepared for the steering on the boat he is captaining to jam. Naturally, Brooke was swimming in gorgeously blue water while recklessly relaxing on the back half of a watercraft. Taylor ought to have been in Naples, Italy, with Ridge for precisely this reason. However, she wasn't, which gave Ridge the opportunity to revert to a fictitious love by being fixated on Brooke and Eric. Bill Spencer's imposing mansion is poised to shatter, not with a whisper, but with the jarring ring of a phone call delivering news that strikes at the very core of Hope's world. Learning of her mother Brooke Logan's sudden and alarming medical crisis unfolding thousands of miles away in Naples will instantly vaporize any fragile sense of peace Hope had begun to cultivate. The abstract worry of her parents' romantic entanglements or the complexities of her own relationship with Liam is violently replaced by the primal terror of potentially losing her mother. Hope's reaction will be visceral, a heart-stopping moment of panic, her mind undoubtedly racing through worst-case scenarios, the distance feeling like an impossible chasm. The fear etched on her face, the tremor in her voice as she answers the call, will be palpable, a stark reminder of the unbreakable, albeit complicated, bond between mother and daughter. This isn't just a plot point, it's an emotional earthquake forcing Hope to confront what truly matters most, family. Her frantic state, witnessed by Liam, becomes a crucible for their own fragile reconnection, testing his capacity for support in a genuine crisis beyond their personal dramas. The subsequent relief, when Brooke herself calls from the hospital, assuring her daughter she will be fine, is profound but layered. While the immediate terror subsides, replaced by shaky gratitude, the details Brooke shares inject a different kind of complexity into Hope's emotional landscape. Learning that Ridge Forrester, the man whose actions have caused Brooke such profound pain, was the one who plunged into the water to save her life is a narrative twist heavy with significance. Hope, ever the optimist and deeply invested in her mother's happiness, will inevitably parse Brooke's hopeful tone during this call. Does this near-death experience, this dramatic rescue by the man Brooke has loved for decades, signal a potential pathway back to each other? Could the shared trauma and Ridge's undeniable heroism finally dissolve the bitterness that has kept them apart? Hope's mind will likely leap to this possibility, seeing in her mother's voice not just recovery from a physical ordeal, but perhaps the first fragile signs of emotional healing and a rekindled future for Bridge. Sharing this news with Liam won't just be an update, it will be Hope processing this potential seismic shift in her family's foundation, her own hopeful nature projecting onto her mother's experience, while Liam, ever cautious, might offer a more measured perspective, setting up a subtle new dynamic between them even as they navigate this shared concern. Simultaneously, miles away, another kind of tension is reaching its boiling point, centered on the unwavering moral compass of Dr. John Finnegan. His confrontation with Grace Buckingham is a direct assault on the poisonous lie that has festered for weeks, the fabricated brain cancer diagnosis and sham procedure used to manipulate Liam and Steffi. Finn, embodying the integrity his profession demands and the loyalty he feels towards Liam as a brother-in-law and friend, refuses to be complicit in Grace's deception. Her desperate pleas for secrecy fall on deaf ears. Finn's stance is unyielding. Grace must confess the truth to Liam, and she must do it immediately. This isn't a negotiation, it's an ethical imperative. Finn's insistence on dragging Grace to the Spencer mansion for this confession is a powerful moment of accountability. He understands the devastating emotional toll the lie has taken on Liam, on Steffi, and on their family. Finn forcing this reckoning is not just about clearing Liam's name or alleviating his suffering, it's a crucial step in his own journey, reaffirming his commitment to honesty and justice after his own past entanglement with Sheila's manipulations. He becomes the catalyst forcing the poisonous secret into the light, demanding the painful but necessary catharsis of truth, directly contrasting the webs of deceit spun elsewhere. Meanwhile, the most volatile and potentially explosive collision is brewing entirely off Liam and Hope's radar, the inevitable, dangerous meeting between Lee Finnegan and Sheila Sharp. Their history is a tinderbox of resentment, betrayal, and maternal fury. Lee, fiercely protective of her son Finn and still traumatized by Sheila's near-fatal attack on her, views Sheila as a monstrous plague. Sheila, conversely, sees Lee as an obstacle to her delusional fantasy of a loving relationship with Finn and her unseen granddaughter. Their paths crossing is never coincidental, it's a recipe for disaster. The spoilers hinting at an encounter potentially involving Luna Nozawa add a terrifying layer of peril. Lee, operating under immense stress guarding the explosive secret of Luna's true parentage, as Sugar's daughter and thus Sheila's biological granddaughter, and Luna's current comatose state hidden away, is walking a tightrope. A single moment of heightened emotion during a confrontation with Sheila, a misplaced word, a cryptic warning, a panicked reaction to Sheila mentioning Finn or children, could easily become the catastrophic Luna slip-up. Sheila's predatory instincts are finely tuned, Any inconsistency or flicker of fear from Lee would immediately ignite her suspicion. She is a hunter, and Lee, guarding the ultimate secret, is prey who cannot afford a single misstep. The true shocker teased, however, lies in the horrifying possibility that Sheila, driven by newfound suspicion or simply her relentless, obsessive nature, might escalate from a verbal clash to active pursuit. Imagine Sheila, the embodiment of predatory instinct, deciding to follow Lee after their encounter. The thought of Sheila tracking Lee to the hidden location where Luna lies vulnerable in a coma is the stuff of nightmares. The moment Sheila lays eyes on the girl she believes to be her deceased granddaughter, alive but unconscious, under Lee's care, would detonate every existing storyline. The shock for Sheila would be monumental, shattering her perception of reality and igniting a terrifying, possessive fury. For Lee, it would be her worst fear realized, the monster discovering her most precious and dangerous secret. This collision isn't just about their personal feud, it's about exposing the dormant bomb of Luna's lineage and condition to the one person capable of causing maximum destruction with that knowledge. Sheila's reaction wouldn't be grandmotherly concern, it would be the unleashing of a feral, possessive force, viewing Luna not as a person, but as hers, a new avenue to manipulate Finn, and a weapon to wield against Lee and Steffi. The fallout would be catastrophic, pulling Finn into an impossible conflict between his biological mother and the woman who raised him, threatening Steffi's safety, and potentially endangering Luna's very life. Therefore, these seemingly disparate threads, Hope's visceral fear for Brooke transforming into cautious optimism, Finn's rigid enforcement of truth upon Grace, and the powder keg encounter between Lee and Sheila, are intricately woven together by the show's core themes. Hope's storyline explores the resilience of familial love and the enduring hope for reconciliation, even amidst crisis. Finn's arc champions integrity and the painful necessity of confronting lies, offering a counterpoint to the deception festering elsewhere. But it is the looming collision between Lee and Sheila, charged with the volatile secret of Luna, that holds the potential for the true game-changing shocker. It pits raw, protective maternal instinct against deranged, obsessive possession, with an innocent life hanging in the balance. The calm in Bill's mansion, the tense confession at the Spencer house, and the explosive potential of a chance encounter on the streets of Los Angeles exist on a collision course, promising that the aftermath of Brooke's dip in the Mediterranean will ripple outwards, threatening to pull every major player into a new maelstrom of revelation, danger, and the terrifying consequences of long-buried truths finally coming to light. The weight of Brooke's crisis, the gravity of Finn's truth-telling, and the earth-shattering peril of Sheila nearing Luna's secret converge, proving that in Los Angeles, no crisis, no lie, and certainly no hidden granddaughter, remains contained for long. Brooke Logan's impulsive flight to Naples, fueled by the desperate, undying ember of her belief that Ridge Forrester remains her soulmate despite the churning tides of betrayal, separation, and his current engagement to her arch-rival, Taylor Hayes, was a quintessentially soapy gamble played against stacked odds, yet Taylor's baffling decision to remain in Los Angeles, cloaking her absence in the flimsy mantle of trust, wasn't just a tactical error, it was a catastrophic surrender of the battlefield that fundamentally undermines her relationship and illuminates with glaring clarity why Brooke, amidst the sun-drenched chaos of Italy, truly has only one rational, self-preserving option left: Nick Marone, the man actively demonstrating the unwavering devotion Ridge has chronically withheld. Taylor's proclaimed trust in Ridge, parroted defensively to Brooke's sisters Donna and Katie, rings hollow not merely because it's uncharacteristically passive for the fiery psychiatrist, but because it spectacularly ignores the volatile alchemy of this specific situation, the deeply ingrained patterns of Ridge's heart, and the predatory presence of Brooke herself on foreign soil, effectively handing Brooke the keys to the kingdom Taylor supposedly just won. The viewer, treated to the visual feast of the Italian location shoot, the glamorous backdrop against which this latest Forrester Logan Hayes Marone quadrille unfolds, could see the narrative trap being set from miles away, the isolation from familiar supports, the heightened emotions of a destination event, Forrester Creations' business conveniently serving as the catalyst, the forced proximity, and the re-emergence of a passionate past contender in Nick, all coalescing into a pressure cooker designed to reignite old flames. And reignite they did, spectacularly underscored by the near tragedy of Brooke's plunge from the malfunctioning boat, a moment of primal vulnerability and rescue that thrust Ridge back into the role of Brooke's protector, a role deeply etched in their shared history, a moment that never would have occurred, or at least not with such potent intimacy, had Taylor been present as the vigilant guardian of her engagement she absolutely should have been. The sheer absurdity of Taylor's absence becomes agonizingly apparent when dissecting the forces at play in Italy. Nick Morone, returned with Wagner's characteristic intensity, isn't merely lurking, he's actively prosecuting a compelling case against Ridge, directly challenging Brooke's core fantasy. His argument isn't petty jealousy, it's a stark recitation of observable history. Ridge has never fully committed to Brooke. His love, however profound in moments, is perpetually conditional, perpetually divided, perpetually vulnerable to external pressures, be it Taylor, Caroline, or his own internal conflicts, and the siren song of being needed elsewhere. Ridge isn't with Brooke now, Nick emphasizes, not truly, not in the way that matters, he's pledged to Taylor. So why, Nick implores Brooke, and the logic resonates with the audience, would Ridge suddenly transform into the steadfast partner Brooke has spent decades fruitlessly chasing? Nick positions himself as the antithesis, the man who has offered complete devotion, who wants to offer it again, who actively pursues her now, physically present and fighting, unlike the man she crossed an ocean for who remains emotionally entangled elsewhere. Brooke's journey to Italy, predicated on the belief she could turn Ridge's head, inherently acknowledges his fickleness, the very trait Taylor claims her trust overcomes. Taylor's trust isn't strength. In this context, it's willful blindness to Ridge's established nature and the potent threat Brooke physically represents in his orbit without Taylor's counterbalance. Further highlighting the dysfunction surrounding Ridge is the utterly ineffectual presence of Eric Forrester. Positioned as a patriarch offering sage advice, Eric instead embodies the infuriating archetype of the sidewalk supervisor, endlessly opining on how the job should be done, Ridge confronting Nick, protecting Brooke, securing his relationship, while steadfastly refusing to lift a finger to actually do it himself. His repeated admonishments to Ridge about Nick are empty noise. This is the same Eric who masterminded his own dramatic exit from a toxic marriage to Quinn, strategically maneuvering Donna into his life with decisive action. He possesses the resources, the authority, as head of Forrester Creations sponsoring the event, and the motivation, protecting his son's fragile relationship and the company's interests, to have intervened directly. He could have easily deployed FC staff to misdirect Nick, occupied him with bogus emergencies, or even confronted him himself with the weight of his position. Instead, Eric chooses lamentation and armchair quarterbacking, offering critiques before, during, and after Nick's advances, leaving Ridge emotionally exposed and Brooke vulnerable. McCook's enduring vibrancy in the role makes Eric's passivity all the more frustrating. He could act, he should act, but he won't, rendering his wisdom useless and amplifying the sense of impending disaster that Taylor's absence only accelerates. And this disaster lands squarely at Taylor Hayes' feet. Her recent, seemingly impulsive marriage proposal to Ridge wasn't a triumphant declaration, it reeked of profound insecurity and desperation, a preemptive strike born from the fear that Brooke's gravitational pull on Ridge remains inescapable. Ridge's acceptance felt less like a wholehearted yes and more like a man desperately trying to convince himself he was moving on, willing himself away from Logan as Eric astutely, if unhelpfully, observed. Taylor's decision to then leave Ridge alone with the very source of her insecurity, Brooke, in a romantic, high-stakes location, is nothing short of strategic suicide. Her trust is a paper shield against decades of proven history. By not being there, Taylor removed the physical reminder of Ridge's commitment, the buffer against Brooke's pleas and presence, and the witness to any developing intimacy. She created the perfect vacuum for Ridge's unresolved feelings and Brooke's determined longing to rush back in. Taylor abdicated her role as Ridge's partner in the moment he might most need anchoring to that partnership. Now, as the Italian drama unfolds, Brooke's vulnerability after the fall, Ridge's instinctive rescue, the forced proximity and shared adrenaline, it creates precisely the kind of developing, dramatic circumstances Eric warned could trigger Ridge's life-altering epiphanies. If Ridge, in this pressure cooker Taylor foolishly allowed to build, convinces himself his destiny still lies with Brooke and breaks the engagement, Taylor's devastation will be profound, but her culpability will be undeniable. She provided the opening, she left the door to Ridge's conflicted heart wide open for Brooke to walk through. Brooke, meanwhile, finds herself perilously perched on the stern of a boat, both literally and metaphorically. Her Italian gamble, driven by blind hope in Ridge, nearly ended in literal disaster, saved only by the man she's trying to reject and the man whose commitment is demonstrably unreliable. Nick's calculated romantic ambush, complete with the malfunctioning boat that led to her dramatic plunge into the azure waters, backfired in its execution but underscored the chaotic danger of her situation. This near tragedy is the ultimate indictment of Taylor's absence. Had Taylor been in Italy, as any woman fiercely guarding a hard-won engagement to Ridge Forrester would be, Brooke's vulnerable moment would have been Taylor's to manage or mitigate. Ridge's rescue instinct might have been channeled differently, observed and contextualized by his fiancée. Instead, Taylor's void allowed the moment to become intensely private, charged with history and heroism, perfectly designed to reignite Ridge's deepest connections to Brooke. It crystallizes why Brooke clinging to the fantasy of Ridge is her worst option. Ridge is the epicenter of chaos, the man whose love is a battlefield where she perpetually gets wounded. Nick, for all his manipulative tactics, represents a